Yo, what's going on, y'all? How y'all doing? It's T the Best back with the Destiny 2 video. And if you haven't been sitting underneath a rock, Luke Smith, the game director for Destiny 2, has come out with essentially a 10-page, very long written text called the Director's Cut. And it kind of looks back into different things that have happened over the past 6 months, why this happened and not that, so forth and so on. And I thought it was a good idea to come on here and probably have a small discussion, not too long, about what we thought about the whole director's cut. And what better way to do this than with Keith, of course. Say what's up to the people.
Yo, what's going down?
So, for those that don't know, I'll kind of go over a little bit of what this is. Luke Smith came out and he wanted to explain what has been happening over the past 6 months with Destiny 2, the development, what's going to happen with Shadowkeep. Very little information is brought up about that, and kind of going forward, what else might happen. Again, not a lot of information was put in this part, and apparently there's going to be at least 3 to 4 or 5 more parts of this. So maybe we'll do a video about each one, who knows. But if you haven't already, I'll probably throw the link down in the description. Go read it, check it out. It's very good information, and yeah, it's pretty well written. But first, of course, we always have to do this. What did you think about the whole director's cut?
Not that I'm gonna stay on this very long, but I for the whole time I was reading, I was like, I don't feel like you wrote this. I feel like you gave points and someone else wrote this whole thing. However, now as you say, it was very well written. The one great takeaway from this was like it was like finally that they didn't mention Activision in any way, shape, or form. So, well, he specifically didn't mention Activision in any way, shape, or form. So I thought that was good. It did feel like, hey, this is about the game and not necessarily about. It was slightly about the human aspect of everything, but for the most part, this was all about the game and the obstacles that came about when developing for this game. So overall, I thought it was 80% very transparent. There's a 20% that I feel like he held back, but that's kind of to be expected.
Yeah, I was say it was a lot of great information. Some of it, I was like, hey, thank you for telling us that. They, of course, every game developer always has their struggle with essentially developing a game. And he went in and talked about how they had that kind of struggle of when they were releasing the season pass, how just because they had so many people working on it, it still wasn't viable just because of how much content they try to put into it. And of course, the rework of the pursuit tab, he went in and talked about that and essentially went down the road and kind of said, hey, we had to push this back. We didn't have enough time. We didn't have enough people, whatever the case is. But I thought it was really well written. But if you haven't heard Luke Smith talk, this is why I kind of think he might have wrote partial bits of it and then somebody else kind of filled in the bits of it. Luke Smith, actually, when he talks, he's very intelligent for the way he speaks. Him and Deej both, when they speak about the game, I mean, it's ridiculous. So if you haven't already, check it out, read it. Down in the comments, tell us what you think. So we're gonna hit not that many topics, kind of like the first maybe 3 or so topics that I thought were standing out to myself. And of course, the first part, I know you're acting like this. The look back in the past 6 months on what's been happening, of course, since they're split from Activision, the annual pass, Season of Opulence, and the Season of the Drifter. So any kind of takeaways from this one?
As you said, the team had a lot going on, working just ridiculous hours to get this content out there. And the one thing that I was kind of curious about, so the point of getting the annual pass was that you would have more ways to get powerful drops. And that was kind of the thing, like, if you bought the annual pass, you would have, more powerful drops available to you because, well, you bought the DLC pretty much. And pretty much in that segment, it kind of seemed like he was saying there were too many powerful drops and that, there needed to be less in a sense, or that older content should be retired and that the newer content that would be like the annual pass should still be powerful drops, but the older stuff maybe gets capped off at a point. He really didn't go into specifics about how to do it. It was kind of just a, hey, we were really thinking about this and trying to figure it out in the future. I think we have a solution for it, but he really didn't give whatever that solution may be. So that was kind of like weird because it was like, well, I it, I don't know how I feel about it, you know, because like I said, I thought the point of having the DLC was to get the powerful drop, and if now you make it so that like the 5 Crucible matches, you no longer get a powerful drop for that because that's considered kind of older content. It really isn't a newer content thing. Then kind of what's the point of running Crucible? I guess.
Yeah, it seemed.
I,
It,
yeah, I'm not sure.
it seemed like I know, and of course he goes back and further down. He kind of starts talking about it. It seems like they're constantly fighting with themselves about this game being an RPG or being a shooter, and I think that's where the fight of him thinking like, oh, we have too much powerful gear in the game or ways to get it. And of course, if you play any kind of MMO, you play a raid. Oh, new content's coming out. There's a new raid. The old raid is kind of obsolete, but still there for your leveling up process. And I think that's what they were, at least what it reads into, that they had that kind of issue with. You know, they had the issue of when the season of the Black Armory came out. They're like, oh man, here's all these new bounties. Here's all these new weapons you can get. You know, you can get these customizable weapons, or not customizable, but random drop weapons. And they probably thought like, okay, after this, we'll have the season of Drifter. Now the season of Black Armory kind of drifted out, and that's probably what they wanted to happen, but didn't end up happening because they don't cap out powerful rewards. And that could be a good or a bad thing, right? So I mean, if you played RPG, you played MMO, of course, a new raid or new content comes out, you always want to play that, and it's essential to get to your next level. And then the old content kind of just is like, yeah, it's there for like materials and stuff, and I think that's the way they wanted to go, but it just didn't end up happening that way. And that's just because maybe the game is built that way in the beginning. Who knows? We don't know the inside of that one. So that's how I thought they kind of worded it.
And I kind of think that's like the beauty of it, though. You know, it's like, well, I may not care for Gambit, but I really like doing forges. So like I can still go and enjoy forges, and it's meaningful. I can still get good drops, you know, and all that, and it's meaningful. You know, maybe I don't like, the forges, but I like Gambit, and I like Gambit a lot. You know, I don't have to participate in Black Armory, and I could just play Gambit all day, and I'm still getting good drops. So I kind of always felt like that was like the beauty of the annual pass. You know, all of it you could still get good stuff for. Like it was worthwhile. Like it was always worth to go into and to spend time with. And especially, or if it's like, yo, I like them all. I play Gambit so much. I'm kind of tired of that. I kind of want to go do a forge, or and Menagerie is just super fun in itself. So like, and it's always like I just kind of liked it a lot. If they do away with it, then I do understand. I think that was another good thing about this, the transparency portion of it. Like we kind of really got some insight on kind of, okay, here are all the issues and how do we figure this out, and here's why we may do the things we do if we do them. So ultimately, if like I said, if they do away with those having powerful drops, I understand. uh, but I kind of personally like the ability to run older content and it's still meaningful and you can still have fun with it and still progress.
Yeah, like if you play Destiny 1 and of course Destiny 2, this is probably both the same ways. You know, you always, or maybe some more so in Destiny 1, when Vault of Glass and Kuroda's End and all that stuff, when that was released, and before they brought it up to the current power level, I mean, you would still go back and play it because there's weapons and stuff that you would want. And yeah, I mean, if they end up kind of doing something like that, maybe it'll be okay. But it seems like they really just want to go the MMO aspect of it, where they want to cut it off. Like, all right, this is old content; it should be as such. I believe they might have went back and forth with this before, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think they did go back and forth with this back in Destiny 1. So that was an interesting time then. But it was nice to see like kind of the insight of, hey, this is what's been happening over the 6 months. you know, this is how we took steps for each season. Yeah, we didn't do it the best way, and he admits it. He's like, you know, hey, we thought this season was going to be a hit, and we found out that it never even came close because of this one problem here or this other problem here. And I thought it was pretty cool for them to come out and say stuff like that. So what is next? The pursuit tab, and I'm hitting this point because this was a major this was he just yeah. Reddit is a very
Before you continue,
Reddit is
people
crazy.
stop being jerks. Like, you know, these dudes are just trying to give you, you know, content. If you don't like it, you can just say like, hey, I prefer the older way that it was set up, or whatever. You don't gotta be. I don't know what was written that they read that they told him, do not go out and read anything to stay off the internet that day. But to say like they demoralized people, like it had to be something raw. Like it had to be some soul shattering. So people, just don't be jerks. You can say that you don't like it without, you know, going for the gusto on destroying someone's soul and day.
Yeah, but you know, we got to talk about this because, to be honest, the pursuits tab, it needed a lot of work, and he came out and said we probably should not have just sprung that on y'all without these kind of quality of life updates, you know, for PC players being able to hit maybe the P key, and it strictly goes to pursuit instead of you having hit your map key, then you have to scroll over to the left. You know, same with the console, you have to bring up your map, scroll to the left. There's like no way to get into it, and it was just clunky, and it was just like, why? It's like, cool, you took my quest out, but why? Like yeah, so essentially what ended up happening, they have released for pursuits, the team that essentially developed it decided to check out the feedback on Reddit. In doing so, yeah, they didn't the feedback was, it was crazy. But yeah, like you said, they talked to Luke. Luke was like, yo, have you seen the feedback? And they're like, yes. And then he's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't go look. So you know, feedback is always great, even if it is harsh. You know, we wouldn't have the game we do now if we didn't speak up and say these harsh things.
I'm not saying don't speak up. I'm just saying
all those poor
they gotta
guys.
tone it down, whatever it is.
So they released.
I'm afraid to go read it.
So they released this new thing called a quest log, which allows you to keep track of all your quests and bounties on the same screen. I believe it's going to be in the directory, or maybe it's not in the directory, but now you'll be allowed to assign a hotkey to go strictly to the pursuit tab, and this kind of frees up inventory space. Do you like the new look of it from what they showed out in the notes?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I never was really upset about the first change up personally. The only thing I was just confused about is where it went to. Like, now they could have said where it went to, and I just was oblivious, just playing, and I was like, yo, where did everything go? But that was the only thing that had me like, well, this is weird because I can't find them. Then I finally found them, and I was like, oh, all right, here's where they're at. And for me personally, it didn't bother me a whole lot. I kind of have a lot of pursuits tracked and all that anyway, so for me, it really didn't. Like, it's cool. It's cool with the new you know, drawn up. I'm pretty sure it'll change a teeny bit by the time it comes out, but I mean, yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, my thing, and then I'm pretty sure I even still do this now when I play on PC, is your quests and everything was always in your inventory tab. So I'd always hit tab, open up my inventory. I'm like, shoot, this isn't here. So I'd hit my map key, and I was like, oh god, it's here now. And yeah, that was, I guess it was more so muscle memory than anything. But even still, it was kind of clunky. It wasn't like fully out there. The new change looks interesting. I like to see how it's going to work in console. Not sure if it's going to be a good addition for console, but who knows? I won't know. I am going back to console, so this is going to be fun. So the next part, and this is this is probably going to hit a stinger with Keith. I already know this much. He got his paper ready for it. He went in and talked about microtransactions. And man, I know we've hit the nail on this. Like we have hammered this in so many times. But it has to be talked about. So Luke Smith came out and said that not all microtransactions pay for additional gear, but it does fund the studio in some sort of way. You know? In this case, the ornaments for the Whisper of the Worm was successful enough that it paid dev cost-wise, in quotation marks, for the 0-hour mission / rewards to be constructed. So we finally have some kind of information on where the freaking funds go from microtransactions. But he proceeds to say this, that essentially he believes that gear, cosmetic gear, should be bought from the Eververse and not something that's dropped out in the world. I have an issue with that, and I know Keith has an issue with that, so I'll let, but I'm just gonna turn my mic off.
The first part was weird because he talked past it. One ornament, one, for the Whisper of the Worm, just the one, paid for the 0-hour mission.
Well, yeah, it was. I think it was more so he was just pointing out like an example, like, you know, hey, this is kind of the way it was able to work. This ornament or ornaments in general were able to pay for a mission.
Like, and that's the crazy thing. Just that one created that, and I think the 0-hour mission is quite fun. It was challenging. I really enjoyed the 0-hour mission. So if you mean to tell me you were able to create that off of one ornament, I mean, I really wonder what else you got out of this Eververse, and that's the point of basically me feeling the way I feel about microtransactions and this 20% of shadows that he kept to himself. Just it was 20%, and this is the part where that 20% really started to kind of like show up for me. The whole like, oh well, microtransactions, they actually do things and all that. And it was just kind of funny to me that, okay, like now you're really pushing this microtransaction Eververse, but you're putting a spin on it. The Eververse has been like the most hated thing in Destiny since ever. There's like a petition to get it removed from the game. Like that's like a real thing. So it's like, all right, like you talk about how, you want to appease your fans in every other facet, but in this one, you're like, oh, and by the way, all your cosmetics, yeah, you're probably going to have to pay for them, but you'll get Bright Dust. And here's the crazy part about that. For a lot of your hardcore people who found out that you can get the bad juju through the tribute hall, they probably gunned all their resources and not even really did too much of the bounties because you only got 4 a day to get 1% off. So they probably were like, screw it. They're probably like me and just burned as many resources that they had to get the bad juju as fast as possible because they wanted it. And now I feel like this big economy change is about to happen, and Bright Dust is now about to be, well, very, very important if you want to make your gear look customizable. And I feel like they're about to put in a lot. One thing I will say, they have really good emotes, ornaments. They have a lot. They have a lot of really good looking ones. And I know at this point they're gonna put in something that's, I gotta have this at this very moment. I saw a few of them the other night when I was playing. Not of the new stuff. I'm talking about stuff that just kind of came out, and I was like, yo, these look really good. I can only imagine what they have in the chamber just ready to come out with Shadowkeep. So I feel like they put out this tribute haul, try to get everybody's materials out of their inventory, and now they're just going to put out a ton of stuff that's going to cause you to grind. On one hand, I get it. Like, yeah, you kind of want people to play your game and not to have everything on day one. On the other hand, I feel like it's a little predatory-ish. I'm in a weird spot with it, but that's kind of where I'm at with this whole microtransaction thing, and that's the only way that you can get cool ornaments. Hopefully that raids and a lot of other in-game stuff still. He did say there will be some exceptions, so hopefully there's some real hardcore looking stuff that you can only get through raiding and whatnot. But yeah, it would kind of suck if money is the only way to get a lot of the really cool stuff.
Yeah, I have a small issue with it. I mean, you see somebody running around with I the skull on fire thing. Originally and beforehand, and this is just an example, this used to be something where you beat the nightfall for the week. Your head is on fire. Okay, I thought that was always dope. I thought that was dope. And then I think eventually they made it into a cosmetic and you had to buy silver. Eh, that sucks. But I guess the point I'm trying to make here is make a content or something in the game where it's probably the hardest thing or the most difficult thing that has the craziest mechanics, you know, not raid level, but enough to be like, not everybody will probably do it, but people that see, you know, I'm walking around the tower, I see this guy, like, oh man, that joint looks dope, you know, and you figure out where it's from. You're like, you know what? Probably only 22% of the people in this game have that. I'm about to become one of those 2%, you know, and you start wanting to get it. Like, put that into the game and take away some of the microtransactions, but I guess they do pay for stuff, as he says. But I really wish that there was something, not that we have to buy silver for, buy bright dust or get bright dust, earn bright dust, whatever the case is, that is in the game. Allow us to earn these cosmetics some way. No, save like maybe certain seasonal things, small, very small seasonal things, not a lot, very small. I mean, very small in the Eververse, and then allow us to earn them. I rather do it that way than having to pay for everything. Allow something to drop at least. Allow us to feel cool about it. You know, I mean, walk through the freaking tower and I get a message like, "Yo, dude, where'd you get that from? Because I wanted to." And I'm not sitting there saying, "Oh, I paid $30 for it." Something about that sounds horrible to me.
I really hope there's a $30 cosmetic.
Well, you know what I mean. Like,
Oh no, I just could see it happening.
I can see it happening too.
That's not a thing.
And I'm just like, don't let me sit here and be like telling this person like, yo, I had to buy it. Like, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to sit there and tell this person like, yo, I had to beat this boss on like the super 100 level light increase for the enemies, and we won. You know, that sounds better than being like, yeah, I took my wallet out, I swiped my card, or I put my card number in and I just bought it. you know. So I hope that changes. I mean, if I understand it funds things, but please don't make it a focus. Once it becomes a focus, it becomes very bad. But
yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it will become kind of a focus.
don't you dare put that bad juju over here.
And that's just based off of, like I said,
nope.
And the other thing, I'm hoping that they explain how much bright dust you get for an activity and how much things are going to cost with bright dust. Like, that's if okay, now there are no more Eververse bounties for you to get bright dust. Like, how much do you get for a Crucible match, and how does that translate into buying something from the Eververse? Something tells me it is not going to be pretty in terms of how much you get versus how much something costs. And then it's going to be like, oh, yo, the most fly ornament on the planet is in the Eververse, but you only got 7 days to get it, and who knows if it comes back this season. Then you're like, oh my god, well, I got to get it right now, because who knows when it'll be featured again in the Eververse and all that. So now people are like, yep, I'll just pull out the card, $10, here it goes, take my money. And or no, I think there's $5 option for, but that's probably not enough to get it. It's probably gonna be priced at like $8, something real random where you got to put down 10.
Take your Fortnite juju and get it out. Your Fortnite juju, take that out. Right,
get it. Yeah, nah, I feel like I mean, just as Mira mentioned and talking about it, on one hand, I was like, that's very transparent of you. But on the other hand, it was you're setting it up so that people aren't super upset when you start to do these things in the Eververse. And that seemed to be the part of the course for this whole thing was, hey, I know you guys are upset. Here is the background story to why all this is happening. And then this was just kind of thrown in there. Oh yeah, we pay for 0 hour, but
yeah,
we need money.
Yeah, I like the whole transparency of it. Again, I want to say thank you, Luke Smith, for coming out and putting out this information. We know that you probably couldn't say everything for reasons that you don't want to, you know, lawyers and such, you know, hey, we understand that, but it was great to read this, and if you haven't, I really encourage you to go read it. If you're a Destiny 2 fan, Destiny fan, Bungie fan, whatever the case is, go ahead and read it. Check it out. He says he's got like 5-6 more tidbits that he wants to get into over the course of maybe 2 weeks. He's gonna put out more of these papers like this, going into the hardships of the game and hardships of developing of the game and other things as well, as far as like shadow keep and stuff. So that's kind of all we wanted to touch on. There's more, but I didn't think it was really worth going back and talking about. If you want to read it, and then, you know, maybe comment down below. But that's about it for this. Thank you, Keith, for joining me. And of course, we have to do our nice plug of, if you haven't already, be sure to check out the Otacon video. There is a giveaway going on, and apparently Keith and Roger are buying stuff for the subs as well. That's what I last heard from previous videos. So yeah.
Otakon 2019, you got until the August 30 day.
August 30 day. All right.
August 30 day.
Wow. All right, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button, comment, and hit the subscribe button and the bell. Until the next video, I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.